Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everybody. Today on our Women Making History podcast, where we celebrate women of the past, the present, and the future, we're talking about women in the world of food and wine. Wine is always part of these shows. Why not, right? And we have some amazing guests joining us. First, I want to bring SHARON K on the show. You know her. She has a podcast with us every first Wednesday, Wander the World with SHARON. And she's a food, wine, travel writer, an award-winning photographer. And we're going to talk about her career and also some special ladies in the industry that she just met in Oakland. So go to SHARONKKURTZ.com. So welcome back, SHARON. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm looking forward to the segment.
Oh, we are looking forward to it too. And Peggy Fiandaca is here, and both of you have shows on the first Wednesday, so this is perfect. And we're airing this on the last Wednesday, so this is great. So Peggy, everyone, Peggy and her husband Kurt own and operate LDV Winery in Arizona. So Peggy, the tasting room is up in Scottsdale, so you can go enjoy wine and art. And if you want to go visit the vineyard, you got to get a special pass. The vineyard's out by Chiricahua National Monument in Southeast Arizona. So you can go to ldvwinery.com to learn more and listen to our podcast, Wine Time with Peggy, every first Wednesday. So welcome back, Peggy. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Doing really wonderful. Yep.
Did I see snow in the mountains already in Arizona?
Yes, the Chiricahua Mountains have their first dusting of snow behind our vineyard. So yeah, it's exciting.
So what happens to the little babies that you just planted?
They're going into dormancy, and they're doing just fine. But yes, the vineyard is filled with fall colors, beautiful oranges and reds and yellows, and they're going to start turning brown here now that we're getting our first freeze probably this upcoming week or so.
Oh, wow. Wow. So I want to tell everyone SHARON is not far from you. SHARON is in Austin, Texas, but I mean, you have to drive through half of Texas to get and one state. But we're going to go up north to Carol Bumpus. She is a food and travel writer and author. Her new book is out now. It released on November 12th. In fact, we're recording this before November 12th, but it is Adventures on Land and Sea, Searching for Culinary Pleasures in Provence and along the Côte d'Azur. And I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but you can go to carolbumpus.com, and that's Carol with an E. So welcome. How are you, Carol?
I'm just fine. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell me about my pronunciations of things, or pronunciation, however you want.
This is fine. I have written about 5 books about France, but that doesn't mean I speak it. So don't ask me.
Yeah. So you travel the world, but you seem to like Europe quite a bit, huh? And you're based in the San Francisco area. Yeah.
That's right. And I started writing about women and children and families in France. Mainly it had to do with a connection to World War II. But then I started getting into writing about the women who come to the tables and what do they bring to the table. And so the question was, what kinds of foods did you serve your family when you were a young wife? And so, or what do you serve your family now? What are your traditions? And so that took off and got legs in a different direction than I had intended. And suddenly people were wanting the recipes. So I was collecting recipes and putting them in the different books that came out. And this particular book that I'm doing now is all on Provence. It's actually 3 separate tours to Provence, and over the course of like 10 years. And it was me and my husband, and we were trying to find out what is the joy, what is the secret about Provence, what is the draw. And so the first time I went with 2 other couples, and we were just really looking at the obviously wine tasting, lots and lots of wine tasting. And also we're very intrigued with the kinds of food, the traditional foods there. And that was wonderful. And certainly by the sea, by the Côte d'Azur, going down there and getting the moules and frites and mussels and French fries, and we just embraced it all. And so then the second time I went, and the second tour is actually where 8 other women and plus my sister went to Provence on a culinary cooking tour. And so we're going through all these little towns and we're actually having cooking classes in very unique spaces. Like the first one was a first century Roman stable that obviously had been converted, but it was, you just kind of look at this and the thing was, it was right on the Rhone River in Arles, and you get a sense of where the history and where the spices and where everything has come into that country. It's through the highway of the Rhone River, from the Phoenicians to the Greeks to the Romans to the, and all their spices and all their foods. And that is what influences the Provençal cuisine. So that was fascinating to me. And we did a number of those. And then the third section is where my husband was able to get a special license where he could sail on Mediterranean waters, and he's a sailor here in San Francisco, and so that was too exciting.
Cool.
We had to do it for $25. It was and his passport, he could go do that, and he thought, well, it's kind of like his something that came out of a cereal box. This was great, we'll go do it. But it was the most wonderful, exciting time. But it's a very different experience when you're sailing along the coast, because you're seeing the land differently, and you're also approaching the people differently. And fortunately, we had another couple on board who were French, who could talk to the harbor master and the important people we needed to converse with, because we don't speak enough French. But we were able to experience all the traditional foods and the culture of sailing along there and figuring out what works, what doesn't work. So most of my books are kind of I would say, fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. It's not a how-to. It's maybe more how not to. It's, did this, and I wouldn't do that if I were you.
This sounds like our kind of travel.
I would try that differently maybe next time, that kind of thing. And so that's what I'm promoting right now. So
Fun.
I'm excited to get it out right now, mainly because the last 2 books that I did, one was of Italy and one was of France. They both came out during COVID. So they sort of don't go. They don't get much traction. So I'm really excited about this picking up some traction. So
awesome. Well, I think all 3 together would be a good present for someone, that's into going to Europe and wants that kind of foodie holiday, and I wanted to go to Peggy here because Peggy, I know that you and Kurt did a lot of wine tasting in Europe, right?
We have. We've been on the Rhone River with our wines, leading a tour of folks that are in our wine club down the Rhone. We just loved every bit of it.
Oh man. And then I know, Sharon, you've done a lot of European travel too, right?
I was on the Rhone River this summer, so we all have a connection there.
Well, why aren't we all there now?
I know.
We should be doing that. We should be doing a floating show on that. Sharon, what led you into, I know we've talked a little bit on this on other shows, but into the world of food and wine travel and doing that as a travel writer?
Well, as a travel writer, I'm interested in stories, and I love people and hearing their stories. So often when I travel in the destinations, I meet wonderful, interesting people that I want to write about, and many of them are in the food industry. So this summer, we went to Oakland, California to learn all about Oakland. What makes it tick? How is it unique? And we were lucky enough to go to 3 different restaurants, well, many restaurants, but 3 of them had women chefs. So I thought, oh, there is a story here. So I went on a night when all the chefs were cooking in the kitchen and talked with each of them, and they each had very unique stories, how they came about being a woman chef, and what makes it enjoyable for them, what are some of the difficulties, and what kind of food they cook.
I think it's really important. And I want people to know you've got an article on this on the Food Wine Travel magazine through the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association. A lot of women in the food and wine industry through that organization.
That's
And
great.
so the link is in the episode notes. But I think a lot of time, I know Peggy, we're going to talk about women in wine. We've got to. But a lot of times when we think about chefs, a lot of times it's men, right? And then when people think about cooking, it's home, women always in the kitchen kind of thing. So it's kind of this thing about women can do this professionally too, right? And so that's you don't see as many female chefs as you do men, I think, but they're there for sure. There's a lot of them,
Yes,
but they do need the spotlight shined on them, I believe,
yes, it's
as we
true.
travel. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, women and knives go hand in hand. Maybe we should have a murder mystery going on here. I don't know, but Peggy, even that's the same for the wine world. We're seeing more women in wine, as we've done a show on that before with you. I'll link that in the episode notes too. But again, it's whenever you think about the wine industry, most people will think men first, huh?
Right, they do, but women are up and coming winemakers. And as I've talked about on our segments in the past, women have an incredible sense of smell, which is
Mm,
so critical, your sense of smell in making great wine. It's not so much just your taste, sense of taste, but it's also being able to pick out the nuances of aromas. And women are fabulous at that. And so, no, it's been a fun journey to be a part of the wine industry. And I love meeting other women winemakers and talk about their journey on how they got into the business. It's pretty interesting.
Well, I think you got a lot of skills also from going from city planning, right? And being we need more women in that too.
You're
Just
right. I definitely spent my entire career in a male-dominated industries, and so I've had to learn how to stand out and be successful regardless of
mm,
who I'm, partnering with or competing with or whomever. But yes, urban planning was definitely a male-dominated industry, and it's been a great career for me. And I picked up a lot of skills along the way in that business that I've applied to the wine business. And
mm.
so it's helped me all along the way.
And the wine part of it is just you and Kurt like wine. That much.
Right. This was definitely our second act. This was never on the bucket list of things to do with our lives, but somehow we knew we were passionate about wine. We loved wine regions around the world. We loved collecting wine. We loved meeting wine people in the industry. Never thinking we'd end up here. We just wanted to be the smartest people at the cocktail party, basically. And lo and behold, here we are. And we started in our mid 50s, and 17 years later, we're making award-winning wine and still having fun at it.
Wow, it's amazing. Sharon, tell everyone what you were doing before travel writing, because you were writing too, because you had to do catalogs and things like that for your business, right?
Yes, I kind of call myself a serial entrepreneur. In my adult life, I've never worked for anyone but myself. So they're all
Good for
kind of
you.
creative pursuits. So the last one, I was a tour leader for a women's travel company because I love travel. And I'd write more and more on Facebook and on my blogs. And people would say, we want to hear more about your travels. So that led to being a travel writer.
I love it. I love it. Carol, have you always been writing, or did you have a specific career before writing?
Yes, I was a family therapist. And
Ooh,
so it all comes back down to like Sharon.
don't read me, man. I didn't do it.
No, it was really it was about the families and their stories. That's
Mm,
what hooked me, and that's what
mm,
sent me traveling, and that's
mm,
what I was collecting. So I interviewed probably 50 different families in Italy and probably 75 in France. And it was all, and like I said, I don't know the languages, but I always traveled with someone who did. And
mm,
I was looking for their individual stories, and I would travel with a culinarian who was looking for their traditional
mm,
recipes. So it was kind of an in tandem type of work.
mm,
And I just got so involved in some of the stories that I could not tell them.
mm,
So I really am not a travel writer like Sharon is. I am a writer who travels.
Well, like a memoirist in a
Yeah.
way, or
And
a
I'm also,
biographer. Yeah.
yeah, I'm also known as a genre straddler because I started out writing a historical novel, and then that was the one that spun off into it was a small, but it was what was called a companion cookbook to the novel. And that had the recipes that the novel did not have because everybody demanded where are the recipes. And then that was an offshoot to all these other stories
Mm,
that were told, and I was invited into their homes, and they would teach me their favorite foods and how to cook
mm.
them. And we always sat down and had wine. There was always wine. There's always wine in my house. There's always
Mm.
about
Well,
wine.
we'll come see you.
Yeah.
When I was in South Africa, and my mom Nancy, and she does shows with us and everything. Um, she did a tour for about, it was supposed to be a year, but it ended up like 2.5 years. And of course, now we travel full time, so it's never left our system. But she's a wildlife artist, a painter,
Mm.
and well, she can paint anything and paints anything, landscapes, you name it. And so we were living in South Africa, and she went on tour with her artwork as a fundraiser for the National Cancer Association, and also to do a series of paintings for SATOR, which is the South African Tourism Board. And we went across the country going to all the parks. Here we are again, we love our parks with wine in the parks. Don't tell the park rangers. And went everywhere, but we stayed in people's homes a lot of times because we were in tiny little farm communities and things like that, and they were like, well, come stay here. Had sponsors and stuff like that, but we ended up, as a kid, I was 13 years old, and that's how I learned how to type, because I was writing the sponsors letters and doing press releases for media events. And like, I was not allowed to be on the road. I had to do my schoolwork, but I had to earn my keep, so, which was great. But I started collecting recipes from these people that, like, farmers, a lot of farmers. And of course, there's fabulous wine and wineries, but I didn't get to drink at that point. A few years later, I was allowed to have wine at the table, but they, I just remember these old fashioned recipes. I mean, we stayed on one farm where there was no electricity. You had to go out in the outhouse, and I learned about generators. And they had the old wood burning stove, and that's what the woman did. And he would go out, and one morning we wake up, he's like, here, we've got, dinner. And it was a rabbit. I'm like, oh, no. And I had to grow up. But it was that these old time recipes that get forgotten. And I kept this book, and I don't have it anymore, but I would, you just, all your stories about that, about collecting these recipes, because they were handed down. And a lot of times it's recipes that, you're talking about World War II. I mean, look at how food has changed because of wars, and the Great Depressions and things like that. And sometimes they end up being a favorite food, right? Isn't it? A lot of time they say peasant food becomes the local food, you know?
Yes.
So that's I wish I had that book. I really wish I had that book, because Nancy would sketch it, sketch the dish and everything. It was awesome. It was really awesome. There's a lady I want to give a shout out today who is in the world of food. Her name is Donna George. She's on a podcast with us every first Friday. We started our magazine pre-internet, pre-Google, back in '97 in San Diego. And at that time, we were the Blend, just a print magazine for North, and then it went Northeast by the time we started the first issue. And then people were like, well, can you go to Arizona? We have people like, our hotel people that were advertising it. We want Arizona people because it gets hot where you are, Peggy. And then we want them to come here during the summer. And so I'm like, well, we just go over the state line. What's the big deal? So we expanded to be the Southwest Blend, and Donna started that. And some other wonderful ladies in the town of Yuma, Arizona, which is the world's largest, the sunniest spot in the world by the Guinness World Book of Records. It's hot as heck. This is their time of year. Everyone starts coming down. All the snowbirds love it there. And they also grow all the winter crops, leafy lettuce and leafy greens, I should say, all of that. But I met Donna, got lost. So I was late for my appointment. And back in the day, we didn't have cell phones. I had to call her from a payphone. Remember those? I'm like, Donna, I'm sorry, I'm lost. And I was just one street over. Farm roads can get you twirled around. And met her at the Peanut Patch, which is a country store. And she took it over from the people that she worked for who had it. And we both had started our magazines. We were in June or July. Yep, July, I think it is, that we started ours. And she started her business in 1997, same year as us. So we had this bond of kind of being new, and we met in 98 or 99. And what had happened is the Peanut Patch, this was actually a peanut place. People were growing peanuts in Yuma, and the whitefly came in, and that affected the peanuts and the lettuce. And the lettuce was a more important crop. They grow dates there, medjool dates. They were there before Indio. Sorry, California, but it's true. Medjool dates are there. The royal plumpy, beautiful ones, they grow without having to have pesticides. It's awesome. And citrus. Anyway, so Yuma said no more peanuts. But these people decided we're still going to keep this store and bring peanuts in, and we're going to keep doing like agricultural tours, which is what she does. You can go sit in the barn, in certain months, January, February, March, I think it is. You go in on a tour. She'll teach you all about peanuts and let you know that they are not a nut, they're a legume. This is how they're raised and grown, and all this interesting stuff you never knew you'd want to know, and you do know. And then she takes you in the back where they make peanut brittle on this giant marble slab, and then they make their own fudge, and then they do preserves, they do, everything, candy, all kinds of candy, and the best licorice in town. But this month is their anniversary, since started in 1997. And I just want to give her a shout out, because being a retailer is hard work. They're open October through April. Because of the heat, they close in the summer. But they shop, people can buy online. And I remember that was a huge step back in the day. It's like you, Peggy, I know everyone, you can order wine right now because it's cooler temperatures online. But anyway, just she made it a thing for her store to hire teenagers. A lot of the people that have worked for her got their first job from her. And she's very proud of that fact, that she helped raise these teenagers in the workforce and gave them, instructions on how to have integrity, how to be on time and not get lost, things like that. So I just think that's a really cool thing about, women in the workforce having that extra wanting to have the youth grow too. So she was like a mom to all of these kids who are now adults, and they go in and see her, and one has gone off to be a rocket scientist. But started at the Peanut Patch. So check it out, thepeanutpatch.com. So yeah, I think there's something in that. Peggy, at the winery, you hire women too, right?
Absolutely. Mentorship is, I think, very important for all of us to do, but particularly for women that have been successful in their businesses, to share their knowledge with the next generation of young women, or just young people in general. That was very important to me in my previous career in urban planning. I love to have internships, work for my company. I helped mentor. I taught at the university when I could, to share how to be, successful in this profession, particularly if you're a young woman entering a male-dominated profession, how to maneuver through that and not lose yourself and not change, but be strong and become a leader in that type of an industry. And I do the same thing in the wine business. There's always up and coming winemakers, or just getting out of viticulture school and wanting to explore what their future looks like is it going to be as a grower? Are they going to be a winemaker? Are they going to work for someone? And we love to host young people at our winery and kind of show them the ropes. And we've helped new wineries get established by sharing how to get through all the regulatory hoops that they have to go through, and even so far as sharing our business plan with new winemakers and so on. It's important for us, because I strongly believe that if I'm successful and my neighbor is successful and their neighbor is successful, we all benefit from that. It's not not competing necessarily. We're trying to raise all boats and all be successful.
Well, we first met you when you came on an interview and you sent us your amazing wine. I'll never forget when I got Peggy's wine. Nancy and I were sitting there sipping it, and we had other people, and I'm like, listen, y'all, if you don't like wine, step back. Do not waste this wine. This is mine. I know I was like a rabid dog. Like, this is mine. Leave me be. But Linda Kassam, travel writer, food, wine, and travel writer. Linda Kassam introduced us to you. We call her the food, wine, and shopping diva, and she's on our shows every first Saturday. And she, she was the president of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association, which I want to ask Sharon about. When we talk about mentorship and community, I feel it's very important that women work together to lift each other up. And I think those are organizations like IFTWA, the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association, and just say IFTWA, are so important. And Peggy, I think you and Linda met through, is it L'Escoffier? Am I saying this right?
We're both DOMs. We're both DOMs with Les Dames L'Escoffier International, and Arizona has a strong Arizona chapter. And what's wonderful, it's an international organization of women leaders who provide leadership skills, educational opportunities, philanthropic events to really foster young people entering into hospitality and the culinary arena. It's interesting. It started in 1936 as a male-oriented organization. And then it wasn't until 1976 when 50 prominent women got together and said, we need to be doing this also. And they created the Les Dames d'Escoffier. And one of the programs that our Arizona chapter really supports is called CCAP. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but it's Careers Through Culinary Arts Program. And we support, it's a national program that supports 173 schools that provide education in the hospitality and culinary world. And in Arizona, that organization has helped benefit 9,000 Arizona-based students through scholarships, career discovery, internships, apprenticeships, and so on. So, and it's top of mind because they just had their big fundraiser, Harvest Moon. And it's such an exciting organization. If you're in the hospitality industry, both of those organizations, Les Dames d'Escoffier International and Careers Through Culinary Arts Program, CCAP, is a great avenue for young people and women particularly entering into very male-dominated industries, help them navigate and be successful.
Oh, I love this. I love this. And, Sharon, I know there's men that are part of the IFTWA organization, but there's a lot of women. There's a lot of women travel writers.
We're very skewed toward women.
Yeah, which is, when we think about travel writers and food, wine, even food, right? It used to be the food critics, and I know even going places, people are like, oh, you're going to come and write a critic. No, we don't do that. It's like, if we don't like it, we just shut up. It's just not like our way to do things. But you think about, it was very male it was men going out because women were supposed to stay home and cook in the kitchen, which was great, but it changed over time. So, yes. And it seems that all of you in the organization work together.
We do. We support one another. We have all kinds of professional development classes, and it's a great way to learn and grow and get better as a writer, joining this organization.
Yeah. And then do you go, like, if you're going somewhere, do you call up a travel writer and go, hey, do you have any contacts for this? Do you help each other that way?
Yeah, sometimes we share among ourselves. There's kind of like a grapevine, we all can share our knowledge that way.
Oh, that's awesome. And then you hang out together too when you do press trips. Yeah, that's a fun part too. So Carol, I saw you nodding your head about the Lescoffier. I cannot pronounce that. I'm so going to Paris
Very
hell.
close.
They're gonna get me. Sorry, France. But you're nodding your head. Are you a member of that organization
Not
or?
a member, but I have been invited to some of their culinary book tours. And in San Francisco, they had a great big event where all the cookbook authors were to come in and bring some food from their book. And so I came in with I think it was 100 little tiny mushroom quiches, little tiny ones. And it was like, okay, how do you get those from here to there and still have them warm enough? And it worked out fine. But I met so many incredible women. And yes, there are some men, but honestly, it was mostly dominated by women. And well, it was La Dame, so there you go. But there
Yeah.
were they were still sponsoring some of the men authors and culinary writers. So I've been involved with that. I was also involved with the IACP, which is the International Association of Culinary Professionals. And in the very beginning, when I started writing, and I was traveling with a woman who was a part of that, so I was an associate, and she ended up becoming what was it? It was like a book of the year. In fact, it was book of that was a single subject. It was, and it went to all the way to Sweden as a year or world book, and it was all on cooking with lavender. And
Mm.
Ooh.
it was incredible. Well, of course, that fits into the Provence thing. And she was the culinary teacher that had taken us to Provence. And so then
Oh.
after that particular trip with her, then I traveled with her through Italy and France and a number of other places. And so and all of these people were either associations or part of the IACP, which is the International Association of Culinary Professionals. So
Mm.
but I'm more active with writing groups that are here in California, and it's the California Writers Club, and that's we're all kinds of writers, but we have about 2,100 members. The majority of them are right here in my area, in the Bay Area, and so we have a big group of, yes, definitely women that are writers, and we're just helping. It's called Writers Helping Writers, and that's our goal, is to help encourage women, men to become better writers, and if they want to become published, then it encourages them in that direction too. In fact, I'm
Mm.
teaching a class this like on the 17th on this. So what happens when your manuscript goes into the publisher? Then what? What do you do? Well, your work just begins because you've got to get promotion, you've got to get all kinds of things. So it's just kind of teaching people the basics of writing, and it's not specifically culinary. And in fact, I'm kind of an odd woman out doing this shtick, but I love it. Because I am invited to so many interesting things. And one, in fact, it was called Bricoleur Winery that's in Sonoma, and County, and they invited me to go with them to do a wine tour in France on the Seine River. And because I had written a book
Oh,
about that,
that's so sad.
they had me speak there, and they also bought, I think, 60 books for each one of the staterooms. And so you ease your way into this.
Mm. Well,
And
I love this, it's this whole conversation has turned into, really understanding where women are in the world of food and wine, as we talked, but mentorship and helping each other and growing. So each of you have had a previous career in what you're doing now, right? So let's look at that because, we're living longer thanks to wine, cheese, and chocolate. We're living longer, but um, I think it's important for women and men, everyone to understand that you can do multiple careers. It is not a bad thing to switch gears and do what you love. So I want to go around the room with each of you, and then I want to close with a special lady you would like to have over for dinner, right? We're going to have a dinner party. So a lady of in past, present, anyone that you want to have come to this dinner party, and we have to make a, meal, and Peggy's serving wine. So we're going to talk about who we want there so that we can be entertained and also learn from them, right? So in the food and wine industry, but let's look at giving some advice to someone doing their next career that could be in the world of food. It could be, I want to learn how to make chocolate and open a chocolate shop. It could be anything. So let's start with you, Peggy. Any advice for someone getting started and going, could I do this while I'm doing this 9-to-5 job that I'm starting to hate? Or maybe just tired of it,
Well, start with what you're passionate about, because anytime you go off and you do start a company, I've started 2 of those in my life. It's a lot of hard work, and if you want to, and you have to put in the work, you have to put in the time to be successful. So you might as well choose a career path that it's surrounding a passion of yours, because that'll make it easier to do it. I always never say no to new adventure or new challenges. I became very successful in my previous career because I always said, "Oh, sure, I'll do that. I can do that," and I would always figure it out. I knew I was smart enough and I was dedicated enough that I would figure out how to follow through and get the job done. And I guess that's another tip, is if you say you're going to do something, do it, and follow through. And that is very, very important in whatever career you choose. Is your respect is based on your follow through and your honesty and in your integrity. And so that's very important to maintain no matter what career you go into.
I agree. That's the most important thing, I remember just, we've been through, 4 hurricanes this year, and one we had to get out early where we were. And of course, a podcast had to come out. Actually, it was an If 12 podcast, and it was running late. I was sitting in Mississippi, and it's rain is just flooding down, and I'm sitting there in the car. I couldn't get out because of the rain, and you've got your computer sitting there with my laptop uploading. I can't even tell you how I made podcasts go out that night, but I did, because I was like, I don't care. A hurricane might be coming, but if we're supposed to be on time, we're going to be on time, darn it. Like,
Right.
it ain't going to be, you take your hurricane and, blow the other way. But yeah, you got to, sometimes you can't help real circumstances, but I really agree with you. When people don't do what they say, it drives me bonkers, But Sharon, what about you? Some advice for someone getting into another career?
Well, it's kind of just been my life path to do what I love. Ever since college age, I never went to work for someone else. I had a passion, and I found a way to make a living out of it. And then one thing went to the next, but I guess the thread is passion. You have to have passion for what you do. And then, as Peggy said, it's a lot of work. So you have to be willing to do the work.
And have martinis at the end of the day, right?
Yes, and lots of wine. Lots of wine helps.
Yes. And if you're in Oakland, you get to have gummies, right?
Yes. But it's you're never if someone says, "Well, I'm too late in my career. This is my career path." Well, mix it up. Do what you love. I stopped a career kind of at its height and walked away because I wanted to travel, and I was tied down, and my children had grown up and left the house, and I was like, "Now it's my turn. It's my turn to do what I love." And that became a business, and then this became a business. So that seems to be my MO, I guess. I travel, I follow my heart and do what I love.
Oh,
and that's
see,
what
this
I
is good.
suggest for everyone.
And building on that, it's not having lay out your course so specifically that you miss the curves in the road. When I look back at my life, there are some paths that I took that I would have never guessed that I would take in my career. But I was open to them. I recognized that this is going to take me in a different direction. And I took that step. I mean, like I said, winemaking was never one of those that I could have ever dreamt that I would be a winemaker one day. And serendipity, and I was open to it, and here I am. So don't be tied down on thinking you can only have one path and one direction. Be open to those turns in the road. It's exciting.
I really agree, because we tend to self-edit ourselves,
Mhm.
or not have that belief in ourselves. It's like, yeah, just because it wasn't there and it wasn't in your programming in the beginning doesn't mean you can deprogram yourself anytime. So it's, and especially if someone's told you what to do, ignore that. Like, don't, if someone tells you this is what your life is supposed to be, back in the day, it was like women, oh, you're going to be a nurse or a teacher. We've gone far beyond that now. And if that's what your parents told you to be, doesn't mean that you have to listen to your parents. Did I say that? I hear Nancy yelling at me now down
Yeah.
at her office there. But you know what I mean? It's so many times women get programmed, and that shouldn't be. And men too, really. Carol, what about you? Any advice for those going, hey, I'm going to become an author?
Well, I had not even thought about it at all, but like I said, I had been a family therapist, but I was working with some really extreme cases of working with families with alcohol and drug abuse and sexual abuse. And I was just kind of worn out. And so my husband had invited me to go to Italy for a month. And when I got over there, I was still interested in the families. I still had this curiosity. And it was that curiosity and wanting to know about the families, their food, their traditions. How did they do this? And how is it different now than it was in the past? It was all about that. And it became a passion that started probably in 1998, and I'm just plowing through it. Did I plan for it? No. But was I open to it? Yes. I was
Ah,
open to it because I still loved the families. I still wanted to know what makes this work? What makes this not work? And one of the things that I found out on all these different tours was that the reason that the families in Europe right now pull together a little bit more than we do at our tables is because of World War II and because they are still carrying the weight of all the losses. And they let you know, yes, this is third or fourth generation now, but you need to understand we went through too much, we lost too much, we didn't have food. We didn't have food. And in fact, the first woman that I interviewed, she laughed and said, well, I never had to diet. She said, we were in hiding during World War II, and I was in a cave with my family, and we were lucky to scrounge a potato or two. So this question about, oh, what kinds of foods did you serve your family as a young wife? She said, well, we were in a cave. And so my life changed on that answer.
wow.
I had
So,
to find out her story. And
well,
so, and then I've just
yeah.
continued with that.
Well, that shows too that you take what you've done in the past to use what you're doing in the present and
Right.
for the future. And it could just be a different road, just like, Sharon, you did tours and travel, but then it led to being a travel writer. So
Right.
you're still in the same thing. I love this discussion. Okay, but let's have a party. So let's have a party. Let's see, who are you inviting to the table and what are we going to serve them? So let's start with you, Sharon. Who are you inviting?
Well, since I talked today about Oakland, California, and these fabulous women chefs, I would invite Alice Waters.
Yes.
She
Mm.
So
is a seminal chef from California, started in Oakland. She opened Chez Panisse in 1971, and she became the mother of farm to table cooking from that restaurant. And I was
yes.
lucky enough to go. I think it was more like 20 years ago because I was in Oakland and I love that experience and I would love to go back again. So I would invite her to dinner.
Oh, what are you going to serve her?
Oh
Something
my
fresh
God.
from the farm, right?
Maybe I need her to cook for me.
Oh, good luck.
But we'll have dinner out at Chez Penny's.
I like
No.
this. And then Peggy's got the wine to go with this. She gets to
Right.
do all the wine. The wine's covered. So
Yeah.
Peggy, who are you inviting?
Well, keeping with the women chef, I think I would be a blast to have cook with Julia Child, obviously, and make her coq au vin, and because it's such a rich wine-based dish, and she's such, it seemed to be such a character, and a self-made woman, and again, in a male-dominated world at that time, and of course, always cooked with wine and always talked about wine, and her food is, her cookbooks are incredible. They're my first cookbook that I ever got was a Julia Child, and one of my earliest dishes that I've ever made was a Julia Child dish. So I think that would be who I'd want to party with.
Have you
and
seen
learn
the
from.
biography with her? It was and the guy from Frasier, his name escapes me. Niles from Frasier.
No, I have not. I
Oh
don't
my
think I
gosh.
have.
Oh
I'll
my
have to
gosh, you
see
must
it.
watch it because it shows
Okay.
how we wouldn't have PBS without her. We would not
Right.
have public TV, public broadcasting without her, what she did, and talk about integrity. It just really shows that. But she also served in the military,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
she made shark repellent for soldiers out at sea. Yeah, she really
Yeah.
did. I mean, she was
I love
amazing
it.
and funny. So I like that. So yeah, we have to have Julia. Carol, who are you bringing?
Well, kind of in the same vein, I would have MFK Fisher, who was actually a mentor to Julia Child.
Okay,
And
yeah.
MFK Fisher was also from California, as was Julia. And she went to France traveling when she was a young wife, a young woman, and it was just during or just after World War I. But she would write about what she saw in wherever she was traveling in France, and it was so amazing that when she would describe like the flavor of an orange, it would explode in your mouth too. And it was the beauty of how she would write description of just the ordinary fruit or vegetable or the foods that she would see and the people she'd meet. And she saw things all over France that most people would not. And then she wrote during World War II, and I think one of her books, and I've got it behind me, is like how to cook a wolf or something like that during World War II because they didn't have any foods. It was just, this is what you eat when you don't have food, anything else, and this is how you make ends meet. And so it was all about that, and she was such a delightful character, just like Julia. And so it was easy to, pick up on her. And I've been up to her home here in the hills, um, near in Sonoma, I think also. And so she was a real intriguing character. And I took a class from one of her students as a student at Stanford in a food writing class. And so it was kind of one on top of
Wow.
another. And in fact, that particular student now has been recommending and reviewing my books. So it's been a gift that keeps on giving. And so
Wow.
and then when I was in the IACP, that was started by Jacques Pepin and Julia Child. And so their influence was also I remember when I was up at a conference or convention up in Montreal. It was right after 9/11. And it was interesting who could make it and who could not. And it was at the very beginning when they were thinking, I think we should do the Food Network. And that was the beginning of the Food Network.
Okay.
And so then you look at all these people that have come out on that network and made huge amounts of money, and also it's a wonderful gift to people.
Yeah,
Mhm.
What
teaching
would I
people how to cook.
I don't know what I'd cook. She was pretty simple in what she liked. I liked the French onion soup. I'm very simple, but I do
Oh,
some of the cassoulet, which is a wonderful, it's like a stew, but it's with meats and vegetables that are from Provence or from the southwestern part of France. So that would be kind of fun.
that's cool. I'm going to put Clementine Paddleford in this because she was one of the first food writers of America, and eventually did so much traveling. And she, very much like you, Carol, would go to people's homes. And she wanted that she wrote, there's a book, Hometown Appetite. And we interviewed the authors years ago, and I just got attached to, I think the book is actually in our storage unit. It's one of those books that you don't, get rid of. That and The
Mhm.
Secret Life of Plants. That's like, it's one of these books. And she got into the kitchens to see what they were cooking, would go to restaurants to see what was America eating. And eventually she was in newspapers across the country. She was one of their first food journalists. And she was so popular, she got to the point where they had to fly her in her own plane to be able to keep up with how much she was writing and how much travel she was doing across
Oh,
the
wow.
country. So
Wow.
I just her story is amazing. And she just would put recipes in. She would tell, I was Iowa and this farm, and this is what was being harvested, and this is what they make. And so, yeah, Clementine Paddleford, everyone should know about her.
Wow.
So, and check out the book Hometown Appetites. I think that's what it is. So, thank you, ladies. It has been so much fun chatting with you today. So, everyone, go to ldvwinery.com, and shipping is ready. Okay. It is the holiday season, and it's always good to have extra wine when family comes over and friends. So, also go to carolbumpus.com, and that is Carol with an E on the end, and it's BUMPUS.com, and SHARONKKURTZ.com, and that's Kurtz with a K. Everybody's links are in the episode notes. I want to thank you all, and happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, and happy holidays.
Happy
Thank you so much.
holidays.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.